The Name of the Game is an American television series starring Tony Franciosa, Gene Barry, and Robert Stack from 1968 to 1971 on NBC, totaling 76 episodes of 90 minutes each. The show was a pioneering wheel series, setting the stage for the bold ones in the NBC mystery movie in the 1970s. The program had the largest budget of any television series at that time. Synopsis: the series was based on the 1966 television movie Fame is the Name of the Game, which was directed by Stuart Rosenberg and stars Tony Franciosa. The Name of the Game rotated among three characters working at Howard Publications, a large magazine publishing company: Jeffrey, Jeff Dillon, a crusading reporter with People magazine; Glenn Howard, the sophisticated, well-connected publisher; and Daniel, Dan Farrell, the editor of Crime magazine. Serving as a common connection was then newcomer Susan St. James as Peggy Maxwell, the editorial assistant for each cast. Tony Franciosa as Jeff Dillon, Gene Barry as Glenn Howard, Robert Stack as Dan Farrell, Susan St. James as Peggy Maxwell, Ben Murphy as Joe Sample, Mark Miller as Ross Craig, Cliff Potts as Andy Hill, Robert Culp as Paul Tyler, Peter Falk as Lewis Corbett, Robert Wagner as David Corey, Darren McGavin as Sam Hardy, Vera Miles as Hilary Vanderman. Opening titles: the show's opening graphic showed the face of each of the primary stars in turn, with the face each time being formed out of repetitions of the star's name, accompanied by a jazzy, pulsating theme by Dave Grusin. This graphic originally put the featured lead first, then the other two as, starring in, Franciosa set on pale blue background, Barry on red, and Stack on green. All three leads were thus depicted, although usually only one of them actually appeared. Each episode then carried individual credits with the featured lead name in, followed by title and guest cast. When the show ran on the Encore Mystery Channel between 1996 and 1999, a single, Stack Barry Franciosa, opening graphic was shown on every episode. This single graphic also preceded reruns which Cozy TV aired in 2014. Jeff Dillon Franciosa's Jeff Dillon segments were current affairs, stories that ranged from industrial espionage to medical fraud and malpractice, racial tensions, or shady goings-on in an army training camp. The charismatic Jeff Dillon was a stylish, charming character with a boyish smile, a razor-sharp mind with an attention to detail, and a dogged, persistent investigative style later used by the 1970s mystery movie character Columbo. Susan St. James's award-winning character, research assistant, Peggy Maxwell, was ever present in the Jeff Dillon segments. She even shared the lead with him on one occasion. In the Season 2 episode, The King of Denmark, the Jeff Dillon segments featured an incidental theme tune unique to his stories. Glenn Howard Barry's Glenn Howard was a cool, self-made businessman who cut an elegant, impeccable, playboy millionaire figure, similar to his longer-running character of Amos Burke in Burke's Law. His tales usually involved big business or political intrigues set in powerful, wealthy circles. Howard also had a small but memorable number of more surreal, offbeat escapades, such as Lovin' at Ground Zero, in which he was abducted by fanatical hippies and forced to witness their protest mass suicide during a secret chemical weapons test. Other memorable episodes included the spooky Tarot, the Wild One of the Girls in Research, and the Western set episode, The Showdown. Howard's assistant, Andrew Hill, appeared in some first-season episodes. Mark Miller was featured as Ross Craig in some Howard tales. Dan Farrell Stacks. Dan Farrell was a resolute, stern ex-FBI investigator, a righteous figure with a tireless sense of justice, which recalled his previous role as federal agent Elliot Ness in The Untouchables. Farrell's character had a tragic edge, unlike his two co-stars, being a widower whose wife's murder was shown in flashback in the first season episode, Nightmare, which explained his more serious attitude. His stories were normally crime capers, often unusual types such as spree killers, corruption in sport, or televangelism, illegal use of prisoners as slave labor, and crooked charities. Most Stack episodes concluded with a negative image that transformed into the most recent cover shot of Crime magazine. Franciosa's departure and replacements. Franciosa was apparently fired amid some acrimony from the show's producers during the third season of the show's run, after completing 3 episodes. His other 4 contracted rotation stories were taken by guest actors, such as Peter Falker's Lewis Corbett in A Sister from Napoli, Robert Culper's Paul Tyler in 2 episodes, Cynthia is Alive, and Little Bear Died Running, and Robert Wagner as David Corey in The Man Who Killed a Ghost. These episodes duly created the impression of Howard Publications being a large concern with many top reporters. Franciosa's face was still featured on the opening graphic for Season 3, with the guest leads builders guest starring in, then depicted with their photos set on the closing credits as background. According to writer Richard D. Roy, his teleplay for the third season episode, A Capital Affair, was intended to establish Suzanne Pleshette as a new permanent character. Gossip columnist Hallie Manville. The same episode included a role intended for Joan Crawford, but Crawford fell ill and was replaced by Mercedes McCambridge. Pleshette did not return as Manville in any subsequent episode. Continuity. Barry made brief cameo appearances, as Glenn Howard, for series continuity purposes, in 4 of Stack's episodes and 4 of Franciosa's first season episodes. Franciosa did likewise, as Jeff Dillon, in a single first-season Barry segment story, The Taker. However, Stack and Franciosa never appeared in the same episode. Stack's character of Dan Farrell was mentioned by name in a Franciosa episode, Collector's Edition, in which Barry cameoed and Peggy Maxwell phoned Farrell, but he was not seen. This is the closest the show ever came to including all the 3 leads. Stack never made any cameo appearances in the other 2 leads' episodes, though the producers would have had audiences believe that each actor would appear every 3rd week. In the first season there were 11 Barry segments, 9 Stack segments, and only 6 Franciosa segments. The actual rotating order of the lead actors' episodes was inconsistent over the 3 seasons. Sometimes Barry or Stack appeared for 2 consecutive weeks running, while it was not unusual for Stack and Barry episodes to alternate repeatedly with no Franciosa story between. Towards the end of Season 2, there were 2 Franciosa episodes only 2 weeks apart, suggesting that the show's original transmission order was possibly rushed. Guest stars. Some notable supporting stars included a young, pre-Alias Smith and Jones, Ben Murphy as Farrell's assistant Joseph Sample, Cliff Potts as Howard's assistant Andrew Hill, taking a one-off lead role in Season 1's Pineapple Rose episode. Mark Miller played Howard's other assistant Ross Craig. Darren McGavin took a guest lead as freelance newsman Sam Howardy, and Vera Miles likewise as Howard's top female reporter, Hilary Vanderman. These 3 episodes all featured Gene Barry in cameos and were put under his segment. Other guest stars included Dana Andrews, Martin Balsam, Ann Baxter, Honor Blackman, Charles Boyer, Rossano Brazzi, Hoagie Carmichael, David Carradine, Ray Charles, Chuck Connors, Joseph Cotton, Joan Crawford, Nigel Davenport, Sammy Davis, Jr., Yvonne DiCarlo, Brandon DeWilder, Ivan Dixon, Pete Duell, Sharon Farrell, Barbara Feldon, Jose Ferrer, Steve Forrest, Pamela Franklin, Jar Jar Gabor, Sean Garrison, Will Geer, Frank Gorshin, Robert Golett, Lee Grant, Peter Graves, Julie Harris, Noel Harrison, Burl Ives, Van Johnson, Shirley Jones, Lewis Jordan, Boris Karloff, Jack Kelly, John Kerr, Jack Klugman, Peter Lawford, Dorothy Lamour, Gypsy Rose Lee, Claudine Longett, Kevin McCarthy, Roddy McDowell, Sal Minia, Ricardo Montalban, Lawrence Naismith, Barry Nelson, Leslie Nielsen, Suzanne Pleshette, Pernell Roberts, William Shatner, Frank Sinatra, Barry Sullivan, Donald Sutherland, Russ Tamblyn, Mel Torme, Ike and Tina Turner, Luana Tuttle, Jessica Walter, Dionne Warwick, Dennis Weaver, Robert Webber, James Whittemore, Jill Townsend, Brenda Vaccaro, and Robert Young. Episodes. Production. The name of the game provided Steven Spielberg with his first long-form directing assignment. The dystopic science fiction episode, L.A. 2017, written by Philip Wiley, who had earlier written Barry's memorable offbeat episode, Lovin' at Ground Zero, in the first season. In the episode, Glenn Howard is hunted down in a lethally polluted Los Angeles of the future, where the fascist government is ruled by psychiatrists and the populace has been driven to live in underground bunkers to survive the pollution. But at the end, Howard wakes up to discover that it was a dream, which allowed the science fiction plot to fit into the modern-day setting of the show. Stephen Bochco received one of his first writing credits on the series, and served as story editor for the third season Robert Stack episodes. Segment producers. Executive producers included David Victor, Dean Hargrove, Gene L. Kuhn, and Leslie Stevens. The Universal Studios headquarters building was used for the exterior shots of the Howard Publications building. Availability. Following its first run on NBC, the name of the game was made available for syndication to local broadcast stations. On October 28, 2014, Shout! Factory was slated to release Season 1 on DVD in Region 1 for the first time.